Okay, so we are 2 days into week 3 of this Amazon ads experiment. So I had a couple of days, probably the last 4 or 5 days, where I have not touched this thing. And it's starting to move good direction. So one of the things that's challenging about Amazon ads is knowing when to make a change. And as you saw, the first week I made probably the most changes that I'll make. And then as time goes on, it's less and less, but you never want to just let it ride. You always want to be checking in. I say at least once a week. And right now I'm checking multiple times a day, but I won't have to do that forever. My goal here is to get it really dialed in to where I can start scaling it. The challenge is if you make too many changes too quickly, it can't catch up. It kind of like doesn't know what to do. So you want to start making your changes more and more slowly and also make intentional and calculated changes. Because if you don't, it can be really hard to know which change you made that made a difference. So right now you can see I've spent 31.36. My sales are 82.73. That does not mean that I've profited the difference between sales and spend. It means that whatever my sales numbers are. So I've had 48 clicks and I've had 7 sales. Now, this number here, I want to point out, is slightly misleading because I've actually sold more than 7. I've sold 10. And the reason I know that is because I can go into my actual sales, my report. So if I log into kdp.amazon.com and go to reports and select just this book, in this month alone, I've sold 5 books. Okay, that's not 7. I know, bear with me. The thing to keep in mind here is before I started running this ad, I hadn't sold a copy at all in about, I think it was 13 days. So if I go back into last month, because I started running these ads, I think on the 18th of September is when I started running them. So if we go back to last month and I see how many, so I sold 8 last month. So starting on the 18th, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then actually plus 5 is 12. So even though it's reporting that I've sold 7 through ads, I believe I've actually sold 12 through ads because again, I hadn't sold any since back on the 4th. So between the 4th and the 18th, which is 2 weeks, I hadn't sold any books at all. And then I start running the ads and the books start selling. So there are a couple different reasons that that can happen. And I think I mentioned this in the last video. One is that once you start spending money in the Amazon ecosystem, they start bumping you up in the algorithm. So you just become a little bit more findable. Is it exponentially more findable? No, but it's a little bit more findable. So essentially what happened was I sold 5 without being charged for it. Another thing that could happen is someone saw the ad and either clicked on it or didn't through another account. Maybe they were logged in as their partner or as their child or as their parent, who knows? And then they logged back in under a different account and placed the order. They already knew they were looking for it. So it didn't track as being associated with my ad. But because I don't know how much that is, this is my overall campaign. I've spent 61 and I've done 116 in sales. But what you want to do to find out what your exact ROI is find out how many ebooks and how many paperbacks you've sold within the campaign. Find out what your profit margin is on each of those, add up all those numbers, and then compare that to your spend. So I know my ROI is positive at this point. I don't know exactly what it is yet. I'll have to go in and find out, and I will, and I'll put it in the blog post to show you. But whenever someone's showing you and they're saying, oh, look, I spent this and I made this, it's a bit misleading. So this is showing 10 orders overall. And again, I was showing I think 12. So there were 2 that are unaccounted for, not 5. The reason is that I have 2 ad groups. So as you can see, and if you want to go back to the previous video, so I'm not repeating this for people who have already seen it, I turned this ad group off. I basically created a second ad set. I used all the same keywords, but I made them exact and phrase only. So all of these keywords were broad and it was too broad. It was crazy. So now I have 74 targets. I really don't want any more than that. I'm only targeting the paperback. And if someone wants the ebook, they can buy the ebook once they're in. Because again, once someone's in your listing, they can buy whichever version they want. They can buy the paperback, the ebook, or the Audible. In my case, I have all 3. So within this particular ad set, I have 10,883 impressions, 48 clicks, 7 orders. But again, it's really more like 10 orders. And then 2 were from the other one, or 9. And then here's my advertising cost of spend is 37%. So I want to get this as low as possible. And I want to get my average cost per click as low as possible, which this is going down. And that's great. So the one thing I'm going to look at today, and it's the same thing that I look at all the time, but I want to get you in the habit of it. So I'm going to do it again to show you. So what I like to look at are first, what's getting me orders, and then what's getting me clicks. So if you click on orders a couple times so that this little arrow here is pointing down, you'll go in descending order. So you can see that this is where the orders are coming from that we can track. So if I go over here and I open this baby up, we've also got performance estimates that we can now see. But I'm only bidding 50 cents on some of these. So I'm not doing what they're saying to do. I mean, they're suggesting a 91-cent bid, but I'm doing it at 50 cents. And I may raise that if I find that I can really hone in. The books on writing is a little too broad for me to raise it all the way up to much higher than this, because somebody might be searching books on fantasy writing and then that would show up. So I have 13 clicks and 2 orders, which is not, to me, that's not a bad ratio, especially from where we are right now. But these are the keywords that I put in, and then I'm going to look and see what keywords the user is putting in that is giving me those orders. So what I want to do now that I've seen that, because I'm not really clear yet, it's like, okay, these all make sense, right? These are the 5 keywords that I've added in that are getting me sales, but I want to see precisely what they're searching. Before I do that, I want to see what search terms are generating clicks that I've put in there. So we've gotten 13 clicks on books on writing, but again, only 2 orders. So I'd love to be able to hone this a little bit more. Like, what is it specifically that people are searching on when they're actually placing an order? And then I can go down and you can start to see over time which ones are not getting any clicks. So this hasn't even, women's writing books hasn't even had any impressions yet. So we can't judge it. Memoir writing books has had 44 impressions, but no clicks. And again, if you don't have any clicks, you're not spending any money. So I wouldn't turn anything off. The only time I would turn something off is if I'm getting a lot of clicks and no orders. And that's not happening. So if I'm getting 1 click and no orders, but I'm getting let's see, 1 click and no orders, I'm not upset about. What I'd be upset about is if it were 10 or more clicks and no orders. So we're still honing this, but I want to hone this down. And the way I do that is I go to search terms and I see exactly what they are searching. So I want to go over and see, based on my orders, again, we're going to get this to go in descending order. So all of these specific search terms garnered 1 order. So the first specific search term is book writing. Now, I'm not going to add that in as anything. And the reason is it's just too broad. Books on writing is already in as an exact and a phrase. Books on writing memoirs is already in as exact. How to write a book in 30 days is already in as exact. Start writing a book. I'm not going to do anything with this because it's relevant. It makes sense. Actually, I am going to do something with that because it got an order. So I'm going to put that in as phrase and exact. And I'll keep my bid. They're suggesting 77 cents. I'm going to put this at 50 and see what happens. 41 is just the default bid that I set. So Audible books writing, again, these are getting clicks, but no orders. So one thing I did do is under my negative targeting, I put Audible and Audible books. I put Audible books as exact. I didn't want to put it as a phrase because if you put it as a phrase, if someone types in writing books, that might not trigger. But I put in Audible as exact and I put in Audible books as exact. So if someone searches Audible books, I won't get charged for a click. Same with the word planner. I put that in as a negative term. Books about writing memoirs got a click, but not an order. It's a great term though, actually. So I'm going to keep that in as exact and phrase. And I'll just keep that as 82 cents and see what happens for right now. Business writing book. It's actually relevant, but I'm finding that more people who buy my book are looking to write memoir than write a business writing book. A lot of people who are looking to write a book about business writing are actually hiring that out, but I'm going to still keep an eye on it. Guide to writing memoirs. I will definitely add that in as phrase and exact. I don't love those bids though, so I'm going to put it down around, well, not $70. Good heavens. We'll put that in as 70 cents and we'll put this in as 70 cents. How to write a book. This has been in there for a while, but it's a little too broad. So I'm just going to leave that out. Playwriting book. I added playwriting in as a negative keyword. My book is not about playwriting. The art of writing memoir. I will absolutely add that in as a phrase and an exact, but I do not want to do 95 cents. We'll just put it down here. Because keep in mind, I also have the setting in here where it'll raise my bid by, I think it's now back to 50% if it's likely to get it on the first page of first results. So if I have a 70-cent bid, I'm telling Amazon, you can allow that to be $1.05 if it'll put it on the front page. But then, of course, I'm also hoping that person's going to make a purchase because that's a larger bid for an Amazon ad. Writing a book kit for adults. This really isn't a kit. So I think I put this in as a negative phrase, the phrase book kit. Writing a book workbook. I think I put workbook in as a negative phrase because it's not a workbook. And then all these I had, again, this is too broad. So I feel pretty good still about where everything is. Those were just a couple tweaks I'm going to make today. Again, we're 2 days into week number 3 and just kind of see what ends up happening going forward. I look at this probably it updates, I think, every hour. I probably look at it every 6 hours while I'm awake. I'm not like waking up in the middle of the night to check these things, but that's the current update. And that's how I'm just honing it way down to figure out what my best keywords are. And once I figure out, by the way, what my best keywords are, I will start a campaign with only those keywords. But that's when we get to a point where it's just really dialed in. And then I'm going to start advertising another book. But I'm going to get this one going first, and then we'll add another book. It'll be a totally separate campaign. But ultimately, I have 6 books on the market. Well, I have 5 books on the market because the first one is out of print. I've written 6. But the goal here is to have 5 ads running that are profitable and scalable. And this is how we get there, slowly and methodically.